Well, paying close attention to that is Advocate Brenda Madumise, the director of the organisation Wise for Africa, tries to use the law to protect women. Ma'am, good afternoon to you. I really appreciate the time. The law is supposed to make it easy for a woman to get a protection order, and that protection order is supposed to protect her, generally, from her man. Does the system actually work?
There's a difference, Stephen, between practice and theory, right? If you look at what the law provides, is that a protection order is meant to protect you and prevent harm from taking place. That's the law that is written, and that has to be given effect to by a court official and the police officer. So let's just work on this case that is in the background of our story this afternoon. The individual, the woman who was eventually killed, had approached the police, and you will see that this protection order form should be available at every police station. It will be accompanied by your affidavit as someone who then gives the story of what transpired. That form then has got no force or effect until such time it has been issued by the courts and it has been served on the recipient, being the perpetrator. Right? You can have a piece of paper, but once it has not been served, and it can only be the South African Police Service who can serve that protection order on the perpetrator. The second aspect, which has to deal with the firearm, in the protection order, the court would have ordered that the police must remove the firearm from the perpetrator, and that should have happened in this case. And that firearm would have been in safekeeping in police custody. That was not done. What is the remedy that the mother of the victim has? Because the police failed. They were negligent. There's no doubt about it. They were negligent because there's an order directing them to remove that firearm that eventually led to the murder of her daughter. It's a question of them now having to go after the South African Police Service in a civil manner. Right? We have to demonstrate to the police that they cannot be laissez-faire. They cannot be cavalier about their responsibilities. Once you have an order that instructs you to act in a particular way, you cannot come back to the victim's mother, and say to them, "Oh, I did not read what the protection order said because I deal with many others." That cannot be an excuse. We can't accept it as citizens of this country. It's an order that it has been issued by a competent court. It must be given effect to. So what avenue do they have? And the recourse that they have in law is that we must sue the South African Police Service for their negligence, and there is precedence that we can do so. So they can approach us so that we can direct them and assist in a manner that we're going to hold the South African Police Service accountable for their negligence in executing a properly issued court order. That they're doing their own internal investigation, they can go ahead and do that. And I can tell you now, that internal investigation is going to take many months, possibly years, before they can come back to the victim's mother and say, "Oh, by the way, we found that this police officer was negligent."
I don't know what happens in police stations. I don't know if anyone does sometimes, but these are serious cases. No one's going to go through all of the trouble to get a protection order unless they're really scared. This must happen all the time, and they just get ignored.
Oh yeah, it happens on a daily basis, and that's in 2018, in one of the 24 demands of the total shutdown was that we need to automate the protection order, because what was happening is that, remember, Stephen, it's a piece of paper. It's literally a piece of paper that if you go to any court and see how they are filed, how this information is kept, and whether there is a repository of all these protection orders, they will find that there's absolutely nothing. One of the ways that we had requested from the state was that, can we automate this protection order so that a woman in any police station in the country, and because if you look at what the police tell you, is that this protection order is applicable throughout the country. But I can tell you now, if a victim is issued with a protection in Johannesburg and decides to go to Mpumalanga, and her perpetrator follows her in Mpumalanga, and she does not have that piece of paper with him and approaches the police, they will tell him to open up a new case and have a new protection order because the system is not talking to each other. So it's just madness that is going on. And the issue for us is if the president continues to say that gender-based violence is a pandemic, and in his state of whatever, January 8th, yesterday, spoke about the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and how we need to speed up, how we need to be urgent, their response is not that of urgency. It's literally placating us and playing to the gallery. So there is no urgency from them, and he keeps on saying that we must be urgent. Demonstrate your urgency. You had an interview this morning. In your voice, there's no urgency that is coming out of it. So we'll continue to fight and go to the courts to demand basic service that should be given to citizens of this country.
In this case, where the police are clearly at fault, is that there was an instruction that they needed to go and get the firearm of the man who did this. Okay, so they clearly failed. In other cases, if there's a protection order, it doesn't necessarily mean that each woman who gets a protection order will get an armed guard from the police. And what I'm trying to get to is, even if the police do what they're supposed to do, won't women with protection orders still really, I'm afraid to say, be quite vulnerable?
They are vulnerable, and I think the nature of the system is such that once you have a protection order, you will labor under the impression that you are safe, right? And once the perpetrator violates that protection order, you are expected to go back to the court that issued that protection order for a contempt of court. In most times, the police don't arrest those individuals who have violated and flouted the protection order. They don't arrest them, because they will tell you, oh, we don't have a van available to go to arrest the perpetrator. Or maybe we can, something can be worked out. And that's the difficulty with this system, is that because it's left to others who have their own interest in how they wish to resolve domestic violence issues, how they wish to resolve harassment issues, then you are left to your own demise as a woman, because you are dependent on a third party and many others to assist you in finding protection.
This is such an endemic problem in our society, and there's so many reasons for it, and you and I have had the conversation several times about this. Urgency from the leadership. You spoke about the lack of urgency from President Ramaphosa today. We've seen this many times. You see the public statement on the one side, a politician, making a public statement, a reaction to something that happens, and we see, I'm afraid to say, almost nothing happening on the other. How do we fix that disconnect? I would like to think that this is an issue that voters, many of them victims of violence, would take very seriously.
The sad thing for me, Stephen, is that most of the time we don't draw the nexus ourselves in how our civil liberties and civic duties should play out. Now, if a police station is supposed to work in the manner that it says it's supposed to, and in fact, if you look at every police station, there's supposed to be a pledge of service. And that's why we're able to be successful in the Constitutional Court, because we drew the South African Police Service and the Constitutional Court to that pledge of service. What is the basic minimum standard that they need to meet to assist a citizen? Basic minimum standard. That on a daily basis, they trample upon it. And because there are no consequences, and it takes forever and long for those consequences to be dealt with, it's by the time you, as someone who has laid a complaint, you go back to the South African police to demand answers, you are tired yourself and you just don't want to do anything about it. And so what this system has reduced us to is we have become zombies. And at times we give up because we think nothing is going to happen. And it's true with many others, because they have seen that system literally beat them up many times, and especially women, where we encourage them to come out and speak up and lay charges against their perpetrators, but only to find out that they are meted with hostility, they are meted with disrespect. So yes, it requires us as citizens to stand up. And what is that standing up that we need to do? Is first to understand what is this system and how is it designed to make it that we should be and look like zombies most of the time and keep on complaining and not getting the answers that we deserve. Do we have people in this government, in this administration, do we have citizens in this country who understand what it means to give service to another human being in this country because they've been violated? If we can answer that question, if we can understand why it's important when I walk through a police station that you treat me with the respect that I deserve, then maybe we can have a different conversation. Because most times when we walk into that police station, most of us, we're even scared to talk to the police officers ourselves. What kind of a country does that to its citizens? We're scared to do that. Because it's the power and control that they have over you that I'm doing you a favor. If you're not going to be nice to me when you walk into those police stations, I'm not going to assist you. We need to fire all of them.
Advocate, thank you very much indeed. Brenda Madumise is the director of the organization Wise for Africa. Such a difficult problem in our society, and of course, it leads to really such incredible levels of frustration.